God up over the air, into the homes, into the highways and the byways, and coming up over your radio station. Some of y'all have heard the word and didn't know the face, or couldn't match the face with the voice. But here today is a dynamic man in the Word of God.
Yeah.
And if I had to open up a church or support a church or be with a church, I would love for this man right here to be a part of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I want people who faithful to God. I mean, I don't want nobody playing with God. I want somebody faithful to God that's consistent in the Word of God. Mean what you say and say what you mean. You know what I mean? Not only talking it, but walking it.
Amen. Yes, Lord.
We're going to ask y'all, he may not want me to do it, but we're going to ask y'all to stand out of respect for the speaker today.
Thank you, God.
The same way Jesus broke bread with the disciples, Minister Cisneros is going to break bread with you and I.
Amen.
For those who don't know Minister Cisneros, for those who don't know him, I ask you to elevate your right hand as he comes in his own way.
Amen. Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord.
All right.
To God be all the glory. I truly I'm honored and it's a privilege. It's you know, even if it was a church that was on the streets and it would invite me to speak, it would still be a privilege for me because I was invited by the people wherever the church may be. You know, I thank God for you know, Pastor Battle because she may not know it, but my sister, we were probably like, what, 9, maybe 10, not even before that. We used to come to this church. Yes, and we would sit right here and we would bow down and we would try to get the Holy Spirit in us. And, you know, back in the 70s, the East Side was predominantly a black area. And we, you know, unfortunately our father divorced my mom, and this was the only side that we could basically come to. So to God be all the glory, because he has a purpose and a plan behind no matter what race you are, what denomination you may be, what religion in the beginning you may start off. But see, God has a purpose and a plan behind everything in your particular life. You know, this is what makes our God so amazing. He's not like no other God out there that everyone worship and they think that he's going to do great things. But I go back to the beginning when like I said, the Carters, Stanley Carter, Roosevelt Carter, Cookie Carter, Jr. and all them, they were here, and they, you know, here we are. We were speaking nothing but Spanish people coming into an East Side that only spoke English. All right. That's God. That's God in his aura to tell us that I don't care what language you speak today, but you're going to be speaking English tomorrow. All right. But being young as we were, I think I was probably 4 when we was here. We came in 1971 when we first moved to that house on Larry Street, and to be it's over 40 years, and we still own that house to this day. Our mother had no English speaking. She had no education. She had nothing. She was just a Hispanic with 5 kids, thrown on the East Side and hoping and praying that we would survive, and you know, but God on the other hand already had a plan for this family, you know, and not knowing that, you know, it's sometimes difficult to go into other when they send you from speaking over here on this side where it's predominantly Spanish, and then all of a sudden he incorporates you to go over here, and now all of a sudden you're trying to speak your Spanish to try to incorporate to English over here. It's a difficult thing, but see, God already knew what I'm going to do, and I'm going to start it backwards. All right. I'm going to make you speak to the English-speaking people first before you can even speak English. All right. And how God did it, I don't know, but I know one thing. We had some battles in our little area where we were, you know, because we were not accepted in the beginning. But it ain't them that wanted us there, it was God. Because God sends you places that you don't realize it, that it's not your purpose, but it's God's purpose that you're going to be there. Amen. And you may go through hell and hot water because God already knows that he's going to be on your side. Come on. Even when the enemy thinks he's got you in a corner and there ain't no way you can get out. Like the walls of Jericho were impossible to penetrate, but at the end of the day, God already had a plan for that too. All right. But I just wanted to share that with you just to let you know that I am from this area in my heart. They could, I mean, I could move to the other side of town, but you can't take the east side out of my heart. I'll always be from this area because this is where I'm from and this is where I will always be.
All right.
And it makes me feel like I am at home. This is a church where in the beginning there was no other churches that we went to, but we came here first. And then we went to other churches, but this would always be where God said, I wanted you to start.
All right.
Holiness has always been in us without us even knowing it because the Spirit of God has always been directing the steps.
All right.
Without you even knowing that He called you from the foundations of this earth.
All right.
Even before we were fashioned and formed and stitched in the wombs of our mother, did we not even know that God had a plan for us?
All right. All right.
And that the purpose that you're here is not for your own purpose, but to glorify the Father which is in heaven.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scriptures of all time is, let your light so shine before God let your light so shine before men that they may see your works. That you may glorify the Father which is in heaven. See, the thing is that when you walk before the people today, your light has to shine. But you got to know whose light do you have. Is it man's light or is it God's light?
Amen.
Because if you got man's light, it's all about you and it's about your business.
Amen.
But we're not serving ourselves because we can't even raise ourselves up.
Hallelujah.
We serve a God who knows the beginning to the end of your time.
Amen.
He reminds us that you can't change the hairs on your hair a color. But He can. Matter of fact, He can do all things but fail.
All right.
And all we got to remember is when you fall down in a situation and you feel like there is no hope, guess what? No hope never came from God. That was a man-made word. A word that because we're naturally, we gravitate to those words because that's who we are. We're human. But that is not an excuse to know who you're from and where you're from. That your God has never given you that word, so why do you use that word? Hopeless is for those that don't know God. You know God. We know God. So at the end of the day, your hope is not in man, but it's in Him. It's in the heavens and the earth. So let us get encouraged to know that we don't serve just a mere God. We serve the ultimate, only true and living God. We're not coming here today just to get together and have just fellowship, but we're here to have church.
Amen.
We're here to have something that we call today, we want to go to the beginning. We want to go to the beginning because in the beginning, God. It's all about God. It's not about man.
Yes, yes.
And we got to get excited because God, in Genesis 1:1,
All right.
we see the definition of Genesis is beginning. I want you guys to get excited because at the end of the day, you're going to know who this God is.
Hallelujah.
Genesis 1:1. And the title of this message is God's Everlasting Promises.
Hallelujah.
It says in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Yes.
Verse 2. Now the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. God saw that the light was good. And He separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day.
Yes.
See, we find in the beginning God. The Bible always assumes, but never argues, God's existence. Although everything else had a beginning, but God. Psalms 102:25 speaks of old you laid the foundation foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the works of your hands.
Hallelujah.
Isaiah 40:21. Have you not heard?
All right now.
Have you not known? Have you not heard? He is not being told. Has it not been told to you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth?
Yes.
It is he who sits above the circle of the earth. You got to understand something about this God.
All right.
The message and the title of this message is God's everlasting promises. So I want you to take it personal, because this message is not just to everyone, it's to you. I want you to feel God's everlasting promises. And I want you to understand that he says no one created God, no one knew God, but God came to us.
Amen. Amen.
Hallelujah.
What is this? That we cannot approach the White House to even get close to the president, but yet we got someone who's way above the president, who's way above all the land, who's way above the earth, but yet he chooses to come from the highest place to come down to the lowest form called earth. That was full of darkness, and he said, let it be, and it was.
Amen.
What kind of God could just utterly open his mouth and things happen?
That's right.
And yet has the desire, the love for his humanity.
Yes.
To say, I love you enough that I'm coming down to see you in your infirmities, in your struggles, in your situations, in your circumstances. I am the God who created the heavens and the earth. I know what you're going through, but you're not going through it alone.
Hallelujah.
You're not going through it alone, because I promise you that I will be with you till the end of time. Because you are valuable to God. It's not about how much money you make or the color of your skin or what you do in life. It's about your heart that God loves. That heart is the intimate part that connects you to him. It's those moments in your darkest moments that you feel like you know that you're not alone, because there is something right around you. It's the Holy Spirit who's letting you know, I love you even in the most difficult times of your life, because I am here for you.
Hallelujah.
I want you to
Hallelujah.
understand Abraham. See, the thing about this was a promise given to Abraham. Abraham, you got to understand this. In the beginning, how time was. Abraham, his father was Terah, T-E-R-A-H. See, we got to bring it into the time of today. We're talking about the Middle East area. See, you got to understand where the family lived in Ur, which is U-R, right there by the Chaldeans, which is by Babylon. And the thing is that the map has changed, but it's still the same place. Here's the thing. We know where Kuwait is. Okay, Kuwait sits down low, and then you got Iraq, and then you got Syria. Those are the hostile areas that are hot today. Every time you go over there saying that you're a child of God or Christian, you're going to either get killed or beheaded. You imagine what Abraham, remember, they still was worshiping the same kind of gods then that they are doing today. So you imagine here, this man Abram, before he became Abraham, we find this in the book of, and we find this one. Oh, wait, right here. We find it in Genesis 12:1. We find Genesis, if we can go to Genesis 12:1 real quick. I just want you to understand the beauty of God's love for his people. Because when God was speaking to Abram, he was an invisible God. And you imagine every nation out there had some symbol of their God, but yet we, on the other hand, had a symbol of no God. He was an invisible God. He was a God who spoke and things happened.
Hallelujah.
He spoke through prophets. He spoke through men of God. And yet here we are. We find this in Genesis. We go to Genesis 12:1. The first action that he basically, the promise that he gave not only to Abraham, but it's to us. Because you see, the thing is that we look back and we realize that you're a lineage of the basic people that we're talking about today. The children of Israel, that's who we are. We're affiliated. We are now, it goes on, it says, Genesis 12:1. The Lord has said to Abram, leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing, and I will bless those who bless you. And whoever curse you, I will curse. And all the people on the earth will be blessed through you. Abram left as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out for Haran. And he took his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, all the possessions and all he accumulated, and the people set out for the land of Canaan. And they arrived there. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Moab and Shechem, Ai, and the time that the Canaanites were in the land, the Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your offsprings, I will give you this land. So he built an altar there to the Lord, who he appeared to him. From there he went on toward the hills east of Bethel and pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. And Abram set out and continued toward the Negev. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while. See, the thing about this is that God is always preparing something of a difficult challenge for us to get us to a place that we don't realize that's where God always wanted you to be. See, you don't know that the plans that you have are not your plans. But there was birth through a situation that God already knew what he was about to do with your life. He brought them all the way from Ur, and they had to travel. Think about this. Abraham was born near Basra, which is today Iraq. He was at the lower part of, you got Kuwait, you got Iraq, and then above it you have Syria. Those are hostile areas, and they were hostile then, and they're hostile now. And you imagine taking your fleet of people, you're taking everything, and you're traveling up towards where God is telling you, this land is going to be yours. It's like saying, okay, I'm giving you something that you don't even have to earn. I'm telling you right now, my word to you is that this is yours because I'm your God. I created the heavens and the earth, and everything is mine, and the fullness thereof. All the cattle and all the silver gold belongs to me, and I'm giving Canaan to you. I mean, you imagine in your mind, you got to remember, this is a natural, normal man like you and I had to understand that you and I got the privilege and the honor and the greatness to see it in the God's book right here, to read it for ourselves, to see it for ourselves in our mind. He's doing this all in nothing but darkness. Right. He's stepping out in an ultimate faith without even knowing he had faith. Stepping out into, he's 75. Who starts moving at 75? You start settling down by 75. Well, you start doing stuff by 75. Well, now my grandchildren is going to be doing their thing. Now you're reaping the benefits of your 1 through 75 you've done. But God is a God that says, you know what? Right when you're thinking you're retiring, God is ready to start a new chapter in your life. Because you're thinking it's over because the world says it's over. said, I'm telling you, you retired from their system, now you're to God.
Amen.
It's everything that God has intended for the world to see. Because what's in the natural, people seem to think that, oh, it's impossible. But see, we don't deal in the natural, we deal in the supernatural realm. We deal in the realm that there is unlimited resources, unlimited circumstances that can be in your favor, unlimited opportunities for you and your household, despite what the people and what your background says.
That's right.
Amen.
See, we're looking at Abraham. Abraham was a rich guy, so why did he have to go on to this area? But at the end of the day, God's plan was, I'm going to make you even richer than what you think you are.
Wow. All right.
And it's not material things that God wants you to be content with. It's the joy, it's the peace, and it's the love that He shares with you on an intimate moment, day by day.
Amen.
See, when you fall down in sickness or you feel like you're sick, you ain't got to go to the doctor. You just got to go to Dr. Jesus. Because He said, I am here. He told the woman at the well, when He said, she tells him, she said, that we know one day we ain't going to have to go up here to Jerusalem. But He's reminding her, he said, but Jesus spoke to her, I am He, the one that you speak of. And she's speaking in marvel in the fact that He said, for I come so that way you don't have to go to Jerusalem. You can just go into your prayer closet and I'm right there with you. This is a privilege to know that the God that said, let it be in the beginning, He is still saying it about you in your life.
Hallelujah.
No matter how difficult or they treating you on your job, remember, call it all joy because they did Jesus that way. You're in great company, my brothers and sisters, because at the end of the day, when the Lord has delivered you out of it, it's somebody in that congregation the Lord is after. It's not about you. You're going to suffer, but not for your cause, but for the kingdom's cause. And someone will benefit from your labor in that struggle that you may think it's a struggle, because later down the road, you're going to discover, oh my God, how blessed I am, because the people will talk good about you, not because of who you are, it's because of whose you are.
That's all right now.
And they're going to look at you and they're going to know that you're not like a natural person. Because they know that you got something in you that man and this earth can never give.
That's right. That's right.
Even in the circumstances that you feel like it's impossible to get through, but God's promise to you is that I will be with you to the end.
Yes.
Glory to King Jesus.
So be encouraged, people, because at the end of the day, we find that God spoke to a man who was 75 who had not even a son, but yet He said that I will make a great nation of you. And wait a minute. And his wife, Sarah, was a wonderful and beautiful wife, but she was barren. Okay, in the natural, wait a minute, this doesn't mix. This is not working, God. 75, but yet he discovers when he was almost 99, that's almost like 25 years went by. In that process, God gave him yet another promise. And you find that in Genesis 15, where God said to him that I will make you become as the stars and as the sands on the seashore. That's how big you're going to be. But here it is, in the back of Abraham's mind, my wife can't have a child. I can produce a child, but my wife can't. How's this promise going to come to pass? How are you going? But see, here's the thing. We don't question God. We just trust God.
All right.
See, that's the thing that Abraham did. But here's the thing. Because sometimes we want to rush God's blessing. And we think that it's part of God's divine plan. That He'll bring... Well, the devil always brings somebody to distract us. So he put this idea in Sarah's head. You know what? Maybe God is going to bless you through my basic servant, and that you have a child with her, and basically that's the son that you're talking about. Oh, no. You don't step in God's shoes, because those shoes are too big.
That's right.
First off, you best to step back and understand, as one would say, check yourself at the door. Because when God said He's going to do something, He don't need your help. All right. He don't need your servant's help. All He knows is that He just needs your body, Sarah. I just need your body to be an incubator, because I'm going to show not only you, Sarah, because you had a little doubt, but to your husband, because I promised your husband, not only your husband, I promised all of us out here. Had it not been fulfilled, we would not be reaping the benefits of the blessing that has come upon this earth. See, you got to get excited because in the end, we're going to discover that God's promise is still coming to pass through us. Because when God speaks to you, He's speaking through you for your lineage, your generations to come. See, God said to Abraham, He said, Abraham, the people, your children, your people will suffer for 400 years.
All right.
And see, God is not a God that is going to speak it and then later on come back and go, well, maybe not 400, maybe 399. No, He's a God of He dots His I's and He crosses His T's because He is on point every time He speaks to you. All you got to do is just know when God says something, remember it, because God loves obedience.
Yes.
Obedience more than you sacrificing whatever it is that you think you're sacrificing, because God is going to show not only mankind, but there's somebody in your circle need to know that God really is real and He's the God of His word. So we discover that in Genesis that God's promise not only went from Him, and then yes, he has a son. He has two sons now, but it was not to the son from the woman of the servant, but it was to his son Ishmael. Not Ishmael, Isaac. Isaac was the promised child that God spoke to him at 75. That is the child that's going to start this lineage. Because all of a sudden, we find this in Isaac's continuation of his promise. We find that in Genesis 25, where we discover God speaks to Isaac now. Abraham is already deceased and he's gone. But guess what? The promise is still alive. The promise is now living through Isaac. So now Isaac is living a life, and then he has a son called Jacob. And then Jacob, which was considered a thief, or he was one of those conniving kind of guys, and he stole the promise of Esau, his other brother, who basically God already knew, basically didn't want to do for him, what he was supposed to do. So then we discover that God's promise went through Jacob. And Jacob wrestled with an angel as we read along the way, and God speaks to him and says, from this day forth, your name no longer is Jacob, your name is Israel. All right? You see, sometimes you struggle to get something that you don't even know you're about to get that is going to be great in your struggle. See, the thing about it was that he wrestled with this angel that God said, because of that, I know that you're going to do what I want you to do. That you're going to have children, even though it's not from the wife. See, it's so ironic how God is He knows exactly what He's doing. See, Jacob then has 12 sons. Okay? See, but the thing is, the promise came on the 11th son, which was Joseph. See, the thing is that he had a wife that he thought he was working for. Y'all remember that? Yeah. The same way he connived to get the blessing, that he then was, again, connived himself. See, that's why you think you're getting away on somebody, but God knows how He's going to get you back. Yeah. Not to hurt you, but to show you that what we reap is what we're going to sow. Yeah. But at the end of the day, God's promise still came through Joseph. Joseph then led him to Egypt. And we know the story. They were in Egypt for over 400 years. The same promise that God spoke to them. And then God said to them, you know what? I'm going to send you a deliverer. All right. And that deliverer came as a form of a man who once was supposed to have been gone, because back then when Moses was born, he should have been one of those that they threw in the Nile, but because God made him so unique, like He's made you and I. Yeah. That when they want to fire somebody, they come to you and they look at you and they're like, no, something about this person, I'm not gonna let him go. I'm gonna hide him behind here because I know they're regretting doing what they're doing, but I'm not gonna let him go. Not knowing that was God's plan, that they were gonna hold you back and let the other guys go. Because God knows that you're gonna do His bidding. So Moses gets the blessing. Not only did he get the education of the Egyptian way, but he almost got a free pass all the way till he was 40 years old when he kills one of the, because he felt the spirit, the unction. The thing about God is that even though you don't realize it, that God has always been pursuing you, and He has always been after you. He's been courting you, and there's something in your spirit that has just been wrestling, and you just don't know why. But God has always been letting you know that you are mine, and you will always be mine. And you come to your senses one day, and you discover, as one would say, you have an epiphany. You come to this point where the light comes on, and you discover, I'm not an Egyptian, but I am a Hebrew, and I am one of them, and yet I'm hurting them, and yet because God knew exactly what Moses was going to do. He was going to go on and run to the wilderness for 40 more years. Mind you, he was 80 when he came back to Pharaoh. And he said, Pharaoh, let my people go.
Yeah.
And he went on with the 10 plagues. We know about the plagues that he did, but there was the power of God to show the mighty hand of God towards the mighty hand of mankind. Egypt was one of the strongest nations at that time. There was the most feared nations, but yet our God stood toe to toe with this nation and let them know, I am God and it ain't nothing you can do.
Hallelujah.
Moses called them out, and finally that last plague when he said, the death angel, when he said, all the children of him, you put the blood on the post doors and I will pass by, and anything that doesn't have the blood on the, I'm going to kill the first child. Oh my God, was that the last straw that it destroyed Pharaoh? It crushed him. But very interesting that all that time in the first plague, Pharaoh was ready to give up, but God was playing with them. Because God would lift them back up and say, and give them the arrogance that he thought, oh no, I'm not going to let this Hebrew person / Egyptian try to tell me what to do. I'm Pharaoh. No other God is like me.
All right now.
And then here's the audacity of this Pharaoh to say, what and who is this God you speak of? But we speak to, we looking at the situation that we know now that Moses delivered the people into the wilderness. And now we go to the final conclusion of the promise that God did from the beginning. Well over 400 years went by, and it came through Joshua. Joshua was one of the two, him and Caleb was the two that basically were left in there to go out to spy when they were in Canaan already. They were in the wilderness to get ready to attack. But they were the two that came back with a good report. And everybody else came back with, man, it's impossible, we can't. And God was so crushed and so disappointed in the people and said, you know what? No one will see this milk and honey, nor will you see the wonders that I'm about to do in Canaan. All of them passed on, and it took 40 years for everybody to die. But at the end of the day, it was Joshua who led the people into the promised land. And God is leading us into the promised land of the things that your grandmother, your great-grandmother, your mother before, who had promised God and delivered to God what God wanted her to do. And God honored her. And you're the reaping of the blessing. And your children will be blessed because of the obedience of your great-great-great-great-grandmother, great-grandfather. Somebody prayed for you. Amen. Somebody lifted up their hands to the Lord when things were not going right, and they trusted in the Lord of Most High. And we discover at the end of the day that God even had a plan when they went to Jericho. The walls were over 400 feet tall. 40 feet tall. It was impossible to penetrate. But God knew how he was going to do it. There's always a kink in the armor. There's always something in the supernatural, in the natural form of a person that God can penetrate. And what he do? 7 days, 7 things went around. He went around, and on the 7th he said, shout and let the trumpets blow. And the walls start to tumble down. But here's the interesting thing about this, and we're going to complete right there, because they took Canaan and they destroyed, and that's where Israel is today. But here's the thing, that in that city, in that sinful city, there was a woman who was basically a harlot. Oh man, a harlot. Wait. She's in the natural prostitute. Oh, wait. We serve a God who is a holy God, but yet he's looking down on a prostitute. But it was that prostitute who spared those two in that house to allow them to survive. Because had they not made it out, that promise or that victory wouldn't be there. But God knew that harlot was going to be used for his glory and his purpose, because in the end, she became the grandmother of Boaz, who met Ruth, who basically became the grandmother of, we all know who, Mr. David. King David became the ultimate sacrifice that basically made Israel become who Israel is today. I pray in the name of Jesus that you guys read it for yourselves and you understand where you guys come from. This story is just not about the Israels, it's about you. It's about the promises that God gave you and your family, and your generation before that time. That God is here to tell you that I'm still with you till the end of your time.
Thank you, Lord.
And I pray, like I said, that you guys got something out of this and that you read it for yourself and let the Spirit of God touch you in the way that only the Spirit can do.
Amen.